Oh, dang it. I meant to do some math before we did this.
What math?
How long this journey has been.
Oh. Yeah, I don't know.
Because they had like 12 days, 14 days, and they make it back the last possible day. And there's like comments made about days in this chapter, and then it made me think,
It's been at pretty breakneck speed. I mean, the first day they left and they got to Gaelton at night.
yeah.
Then the next night they had the hunt, right? Or was it? Yeah, they had the hunt because that night they went to a dinner.
Right, and that's when the fool... Is that the night that the fool does the thing to get them kicked out?
After the hunt was.
So if the hunt was
So they stayed 2 nights at Gaelton? At Gaelkeep, right?
Yeah. And then they get to the Piebald Inn.
Mm-hmm.
And then, so that's 3. And then...
Then they capture the Piebald.
That's 4. And then they get to the Prince and
Yep.
camp. That's 5.
And then they have to escape.
And so then Dutiful and Fitz camp on Other Island for 1 night or 2 nights?
I think 1, because they got there during the day and then gathered stuff and then set a fire. He skilled out.
That's 7.
Fitz skilled. They slept. They woke up. They did the exploration on the cliffs.
And then they go to the cave and then sleep whenever they get rescued. That's 8 nights.
Potentially 8. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And then this chapter, there's like 2 days of...
A day and a night. The old blood kept Prince Dutiful in a stupor, so...
That's an extra, I assume, another night, right?
It'd be another night, yeah.
That's 9. And then...
It could be 8. I feel like we might have added in a night in there.
Yeah, I could have accidentally added.
But it's 8 or 9 nights before they leave the cave and head back.
That's crazy. That is so fast.
Yeah.
Actually. And it took however many chapters.
Right.
Which makes sense. I mean, you're writing it out. It makes sense. It's just, for some reason, when I read books, it just feels like a lot more time is passing. I don't know why.
Mm-hmm. Welcome back to another episode of Is Fitz Happy? I'm Luke.
And I'm Emma.
And we're discussing chapter 27 of Fool's Errand, Lessons, today. And it starts with an epigraph from an often quoted by us epigraph.
Yes.
From Wemdel, Journeyman to Skillmaster Quilo. Observations is the title of it. And this is the epigraph that discusses and is our knowledge for how coteries are formed and how skill users are trained.
Yes.
This is where we get the fact that Galen was actually doing it according to the scrolls and training skill users that the correct way if you are doing it under duress and need to pump out coteries during a wartime or a time of need.
Yeah.
It's not going to unlock your full potential as a skill user, but they will operate correctly.
Yes. And I think in this little excerpt, it does feel like this is sort of a frowned upon method. It's not like praised as something you absolutely should do. It's more of like a opinion thing of like,
if you need the time, like you're short on time, you can do it this way.
Exactly.
Otherwise, probably not.
Otherwise, not worth it. But I think we did hear about this already from Kestrel in the first trilogy, where Kestrel also said that Fitz wasn't trained in a good way or something. Like, she makes a comment too about how that's not how you should be trained.
Also because I think the stone game was not, like...
Yeah. I mean, yeah, there's obviously more to that one, but
she has a lot of derision in general for her. That's
true. I don't know. So I think, yeah, we do absolutely talk about this without attributing it to Wendell Wemdel.
Wemdel.
Wemdel with an M.
The meat of the epigraph in general is that some instructors like to spend a year and a day with students before they even start instructing them. And at the end of that, to learn how the students would learn, they send some students away to never be taught, even if they have potential, and choose to teach the students who have, the right je ne sais quoi.
Yeah. Yeah. There's definitely some vibe checking going on. And if you don't have the right vibes, you were kicked out.
And it comes down to they want to eliminate the students' resistance.
Yes.
So their openness to being taught different things. And the second way of doing this, if you are on short of time, is a strict regimen of austerity. It's basically that is what they want to do to focus the will to please the master for the student, right? Tools to achieve this humbled attitude are fasting, cold, reduced sleep, and discipline. The use of this method is recommended in times of need when coteries have to be trained and formed quickly and in quantity. The quality of skill user created may not be as admirable, but almost every student with any level of talent can be forced to function this way. So, yeah, the first method is ideal, but it also is a method to be used in times of abundance.
Yes, which I don't think we've said the first method, which is just spending a year and a day with your master.
Yeah, I briefly mentioned it.
Yeah, sorry.
And the master will, if you have the right vibe, will keep you.
I guess for some reason that didn't sink in to me. Sorry.
But yeah, this is the way that Galen did all of the coteries that he created. And I'm guessing Regal wanted him to make more and more and more. But the first time, I don't even know if he wanted to make any of them. So maybe he just did this way because that's the only way he knows. We know he stuck to a life of austerity in general.
Yes.
He had his own, plain diet of food, and he didn't really wear cloaks outside and stuff like that. Like, he had his own weird thing, and it just seems on the first read through of the trilogy like he's modeling the students after himself.
Yeah.
But reading this, it's like, okay, so there's an actual method behind his madness.
Yeah, it does make me wonder if maybe this is the method that was employed on him, if only because he wasn't good enough with the vibe check. He didn't pass the vibe check, but
Right.
was told you have to teach him anyway, like to the previous skill master.
Could be. Yeah, Solicity.
Yeah, so maybe it was like, okay, well, I'll use this other method because at least then it will work. I don't really know.
Because we learned from Verity that that's not how Solicity taught him.
Yeah.
Because he stares into the fire and relaxes, and Fitz is like, that's what?
Yeah.
What are you doing?
But it also seems like nobody really stopped him from doing it. So they must know something about how.
I think the formation of the coterie as well was shrewd, we need skill users now.
Yeah.
And maybe on urging from other people too.
Yeah.
Like his sons. But
I don't know. It's really hard to tell exactly what's going through Galen's mind, why he did what he did. But I also do think, especially the line that doing the way that Galen did makes you reliant on pleasing your master more so than anything else. Like, you want the comfort because, I don't know, you're Pavloved into, if your master's happy, then you get to be happy.
You're breaking down the resistance of the student of fighting against the master. So if you're trying, like you said, Pavloved into pleasing them, that's an easy way to let the resistance down.
Exactly. So I feel like that just suits who Galen seemed to be from Fitz's perspective anyway. So I don't know. Was it a good choice? I don't know. It was the only one available, maybe, at the behest of whatever. I don't know.
Yeah. It's just the way that he did it.
Yep.
Well, the beginning of this chapter is the prince is still kind of in his sleep that the healer gave him, that potion. Another day and a night he's kept in that. And Fitz is like, I kind of wish that was me too, but it was never offered to me. And then I was also left alone the whole time. And he says, part of that it's probably because I was ostracized, but probably because I was also treated as an adult, and I was an adult as well as an outcast, and they expected me to deal with my loss in my own way. So he kind of gives a little bit of grace, but is also like, if I wasn't ostracized and it was part of their community, they would probably help me more. But as it was, it's just me.
Yeah. And it is hard because we do know Fitz is sort of in a bad mood, and he does tend to
I mean, that's an
have,
understatement.
I mean, yeah, yeah. But he does tend to let that color his opinion of what's going on. So for him to acknowledge that it might not have been like a callous thing at all, and maybe they were just waiting for him to ask. I don't know. Unclear. I guess this is last chapter I talked about how maybe some of Fitz's problems stem from not getting the correct way of mourning his wit partners. And this is what you were talking about when you said, well, later it's not offered to him, so maybe you don't have to do this.
Right. Yeah.
And we do have to remember that this is an old blood community that isn't the one that Fitz learned from.
Yes.
So it could just be a regional thing. It
True.
could be
the sleeping draft, you mean?
Yeah, the sleeping, like the way to handle death could be different in old blood community to old blood community. They're not exactly a monolith, clearly.
Yeah.
So so it's definitely one of those things where it's kind of unclear as a reader or a rereader, to me at least, if this is actually a slight or just feels like one, because he is struggling so hard and it is sad. But Fitz does do his own thing. He does decide to make a pyre and burn Night Eyes' body as his own tradition.
Yep.
Which was
hunks of his hair.
Yeah.
And some of the fool, Lord Golden gave him a hunk of hair as well to burn.
Yes. And it was obviously something that distressed the old blood folk, but it was my way of mourning, and I took it. And I think that just really goes to Fitz sort of, I don't know, doing what he knows best.
Yeah. Fitz is really just doing what he knows, because he calls in this paragraph too. He calls back to what Beric did with Vixen. He stood by the pyre all day, kind of loaded it up with, kept it going, and made sure the bones even turned to ash. And that's what he does with Night Eyes too.
Right. And as he talks about his own mourning, he does discuss how things have changed since Night Eye's death. One of those things he talks about is how it's not just the pain and sadness of losing his friend and wit partner, but it's also the pain and sadness of losing all of his senses almost, because he talks about how without Night Eyes there, everything like tastes don't taste good anymore as good, and the sight is harder to see. Like nighttime is just dark, and just everything that he took for granted as being his senses has completely dulled with Night Eyes' death.
Yeah, and that's something that I wanted to speak on in terms of the greater series as well.
Yeah.
Because we meet Fitz in the first couple books, specifically the first book, and we talked about how Fitz relies on his wit for his social situations and kind of enhancing his senses to begin with, right? And then he goes through that trilogy, and then to Girl on a Dragon, he gives away a lot of his memories. And that doesn't seem to affect his senses, but at the end of this trilogy, when he gets those memories back, he also talks about how bright the world seems, the senses kind of being improved. It's a small paragraph, but I vividly remember that, where like everything is just much better than it was before.
Right.
So I feel like Fitz was making up for his lack and his partial forging by using Night Eyes' senses even more than he originally had, or originally would have done as just a normal human. So I feel like he's reverted to something worse than the senses of like a normal human are, because of his lack of touchstones and his pain that he kind of put away into Girl on a Dragon, and then he becomes whole at the end of this trilogy once again.
Yeah, I really like that idea. I don't think that I have ever really thought about it like that. But I do like that idea, because we do know that Fitz is really bad about leaning on wit as a crutch in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
But I think also it makes me wonder if sort of some of Night Eyes' worry about leaving Fitz behind is because he knows that he's making up for some of those pitfalls, because
Could be.
Night Eyes would know Fitz before the partial forging and after. So potentially he could recognize that Fitz is leaning on his senses more.
Well, and that's why he was so concerned with Fitz being alone. It's like, okay,
Yes.
good. The scentless one is back. Like, you won't be alone.
And I mean, from a wolf's perspective, even it could just be from like
Pack,
how will he hunt for himself if he's so dulled.
True.
Which Night Eyes always thinks that anyway, so definitely could be partially that. But I really do like that idea. Good thought.
Well, the healer is waking up Dutiful on the second morning, allowing the prince to come out of the drugged stupor. And she is watching closely because Prince Dutiful starts to wake up and then starts making like kneading motions with his hands.
Yes.
Like cats knead.
Uh-huh.
And she physically stops him and says, "You are not the cat. The cat died. You are a man and you must go on living. The blessing of old blood is that they share their lives with us. The curse is that those lives are seldom as long as our own." And then she rises up and leaves, basically, with the rest of the old blood. And Golden and Laurel have a little aside that Fitz is like, I should spy on them, but I don't want to.
Right. And this interaction's a little weird because last chapter, it was the healer made it seem like potentially Dutiful would not survive.
Yeah. He'll never be a human again, maybe. He'll just always be partially cat or something.
Yeah. And then it's just so anticlimactic with the, you're not a cat anymore, or you're not a cat, you're a man. Good luck.
Yep.
And I'm going to leave now. I do wonder if partially that's because, Dutiful woke up at all. Like maybe the fear is that he just wouldn't wake up.
Maybe, yeah.
And I don't know. I guess there is some magic involved, obviously. Maybe with wit sense, she could tell he was going to be fine, especially if she's a wit healer. Like she's seen the worst of the worst. I'm sure there are signs that are not noticeable to Fitz or others that maybe make her feel like it's okay. Or maybe she just didn't want to have to see the prince potentially not come back to himself.
Right.
We don't really know. We'll never get that perspective, but Fitz is really morose and he doesn't really seem to care about a whole lot going on, especially with the comment of like Golden and Laurel getting away, but he doesn't know what they said and he knows Chade will be disappointed in that.
Right.
But he just can't seem to care. And he just sort of observes. And this is something that happened last chapter as well before Night Eyes' death. Fitz is kind of, ever since that battle, just sort of taking everything in and just really quiet. And I think it's made worse by...
He's probably exhausted. And
I mean, yeah, for sure.
We kind of counted before we started into the episode, and it's been, what, like 8 or 9 nights?
Yeah. This whole
maybe
book,
10,
basically. Not the book, but the whole
journey
action
from Buckkeep to now. Yeah.
Yeah.
Has been breakneck speed. He's been getting injured and fighting and riding and not eating. I'd be pretty tired. I'd want to sit on the cave floor and watch as well.
Yeah. And now his companion is gone. So it's just sort of tough. And luckily, the old blood leave behind a horse for Prince Dutiful to ride.
Yep.
It's described as a little dun creature, its spirit as dull as its hide. It suited Prince Dutiful perfectly, as did the steady drizzle of rain. And then before noon, they are mounted and on their way back to Buckkeep.
Mm-hmm. So Fitz is describing this kind of journey back and how they're getting started. Fitz is on my black, Prince is on his newly acquired horse, and Laurel and Lord Golden rode ahead of them. They talked to one another, but I could not seem to follow their conversation. I do not think they spoke softly and privately. Rather, it was part of the deadening of my world. I felt numbed and dazed, half blind. I knew I was alive because my injuries hurt and the rain was cold, but all the rest of the world, all sense and sensation, was dimmed. I no longer walked fearlessly in the darkness. The wind no longer spoke to me of a rabbit on a hillside or a deer that had recently crossed the road. Food had lost all savor. The prince was little better. He managed his grief as graciously as I did, with surliness and silence. There was, I suppose, an unspoken wall of blame between us. But for him, my wolf would live still, or at least would have died in kindlier circumstances. I had killed his cat right before his eyes. Somehow, it was even worse that a spiderweb of skill attached us still. I could not look at him without being aware of just how completely miserable he was. I suspect he could feel my unspoken accusation of him. I knew it was not just, but I was in too much pain to be fair. If the prince had kept to his name and his duty, if he had stayed at Buckkeep, I reasoned, then his cat would be alive, and my wolf as well. I never spoke the words aloud. I didn't need to. So yeah, I mean, like they're both in probably the lowest point of their lives, almost.
Yeah.
Fitz has been in some pretty bad spots.
Yeah.
But this is even compounded to be worse because of that skill connection, right? They can feel each other's accusations and misery, and it's probably just bouncing back and forth between each other.
Yeah, that was something I wanted to point out as well, that Fitz mentioning the skill connection at all really makes me feel like maybe part of this is just sort of the amplification of both of their moods. Not saying that Fitz would be perfectly fine and happy if it wasn't for the connection, but I do sort of think the like surliness being echoed by the prince and just how frustrated and sad they both are is definitely not being helped by the fact that they're both feeling it and one and like have like that connection there.
He goes on to say that the journey back to Buckkeep was miserable for all of us. When we reached the road, we followed it north. None of us desired to visit Hallerby and the inn of the piebald prince again, and despite Dearkin's assurances that Lady Brisinga and her family had had no hand in the piebald's plot against the prince, we stayed well away from their lands and keep. The rains came down. The old blood folk had left us what they could of supplies, but it was not much. At the first small town we came to, we spent the night in a dismal inn. There, Lord Golden paid handsomely for a messenger to take a scroll by swiftest way possible to his cousin in Buckkeep town. Then we struck out cross-country, heading for the next settlement that offered a ferry across Buck River. The detours took us 2 extra days. So they're spending lots of time going back and forth. We also couldn't remember exactly how long they had for this mission, but now we're up to like 12 days maybe before they're crossing back the Buck River again.
Yeah.
So they're getting really close.
I think it was like a fortnight, which...
It's 20 days, so...
You know? I don't know. Maybe it wasn't... It was like between a fortnight and 2 weeks because it's like when the moon is full or something. I don't know. Yeah. The new moon. Mm-hmm. So...
They cut it really close getting back to the keep for sure.
Yes, but it is sort of a weary... cold ride. We don't get a lot of details.
Yeah. Cross country too.
Yeah.
So boring.
They are camping out in the wet weather. Mm-hmm. So yeah, we don't get a lot of details for a lot of reasons, I'm sure, but especially I think it adds to sort of just how down and out Fitz is.
I made a wild connection in my head right now, and I think we've brought this up on the podcast before, but it reminds me of what's the second Twilight book?
Oh my gosh, Breaking Dawn.
Oh, that's the last one.
Oh no, you're right. Wait,
is it New
Moon?
Where there's just like blank chapters or whatever.
Yes.
This is an elegant way of doing that. I feel like where it's just
Stephanie Meyers did a great job with that. That's a great depiction of depression.
But I feel like this is just like, oh yeah, and then 2 nights passed.
Yes.
It's like there's filled with nothing for me because
there's
I didn't feel anything except cold and pain. Yeah.
And it's just a hard time. I mean, for him and Dutiful, it's both of them are struggling. Yeah. And Fitz says, if a man does not die of a wound, then it heals in some fashion, and so it is with loss. From the sharp pain of immediate bereavement, both the prince and I passed into gray days of numb bewilderment and waiting. So grief has always seemed to me a time of waiting, not for the hurt to pass, but to become accustomed to it. And I think that's a really elegant way to speak about grief.
Yeah.
Of sort of, when you lose someone, it's not...
Nothing's going to fix that.
No, you can't get them back, right? And
Right.
so sort of that
this
sense
is the
of,
new status quo. This is
you have
now
to get,
how I have to move on.
you have to get back to that normal, or well, new normal, I guess. And I think it's really well spoken in this, that that's just how loss is.
Yeah.
But that
also,
doesn't make it easier.
Right. It does not make it easier. Fitz also remarks that Lord Golden is probably the one fretting over the days and how fast they have to get there. He's not worrying about it, obviously.
Yes.
But Fitz also is like, we were also taking it pretty slowly. And he thinks that's because he wants, Lord Golden wants the messenger to reach Buckkeep and prepare the keep for the condition that they're getting back in.
Yes.
So they can meet them properly and like come up with stories. And
exactly. So they know that the prince has been found as well.
Exactly.
And can prepare.
Yeah, and just give them some time.
Yes. But
and it's also to the benefit of Prince Dutiful and Fitz, right?
Yes, that they get time to be upset and not have the eyes of the court on them.
Exactly.
But it is frustrating for Fitz in that this is Lord Golden he's dealing with. He's not referring to his friend as the fool much.
Correct.
It's all Lord Golden, and it's sort of done in a frustrated way. You can tell Fitz's feelings are sort of hurt here because he keeps bringing up Lord Golden and Lord Golden doing what's proper. And he also brings up that he knows that he shouldn't be upset. And obviously Lord Golden can't be seen to be upset about his servant's dog, but he's frustrated because Laurel and Lord Golden are just enjoying themselves, and they're not singing songs and laughing out loud, but they're talking
near continuously and seem to take a good deal of pleasure in one another's company. I told myself that I scarcely needed a nursemaid, and that there were excellent reasons why the fool and I should not betray the depth of our friendship to either Laurel or Dutiful. But I ached with loss and loneliness, and resentment was the least painful emotion I could feel. So that's the only time he refers to the fool as the fool, basically, in these intervening pages. He starts out with Lord Golden and says, like, okay, the fool and I is when we have a relationship. But in his mind, he's fixed it like Lord Golden is having fun with Laurel, and that hurts my feelings because the fool and I can't have a relationship right now.
Yeah.
Which is a correct way to phrase it in his head, because he's trying to keep, the role they're playing separate.
Right.
And be more like, this is work versus what's real. But it still hurts a lot and is also unfair to feel that pain. But as Fitz says, he grasps onto it because then he's not dwelling on the loss that he has.
And I think really importantly, he says that it's the least painful emotion he can feel. And I think it does go back to the fact that, he's partially forged and he doesn't really have the touchstones anymore to get past grief in a lot of ways, because a lot of grief that he's gone through, he's put into the stone dragon.
Right.
So I think that in general is also part of the struggle here of like not knowing what to do. Obviously, I don't quite understand how the partial forging works, because I know it gets rid of your old emotions, but it can't stop you from making new emotions.
Correct. We kind of talked about that at the time too, where it's like he's getting rid of a lot of the pain and the memories of his mother, which is very, very early in his life. It's these formative emotions. So he definitely like stagnates a bit, and he can have new emotions and new memories and feelings attached to those, but he doesn't have the initial, I'm a child and learning emotions for the first time and how to get beyond bad feelings.
Yeah.
And all of that is gone.
Yeah. So I'm sure that like adds an extra layer of frustration, but it does sort of, to me, make it more clear why this mourning isn't deeper, if that makes sense. And I don't want to judge or belittle the way that Fitz mourns Night Eyes. I think how he mourns him is how he mourns him. But I think there's almost like a surface level to that pain in some ways that feel to me like it's because he can't get the depth of pain. And like it's a lot more of just sort of we don't get to know anything rather than describing how he's feeling, if that makes. And I don't know how to talk about this well.
Yeah.
But like I feel like he's so not wanting to dwell, which is very Fitz, but he like doesn't want to dwell so much that we're getting nothing. And I don't think it's a bad thing or like it's poorly written. I just think
I really related to the way that he grieves this, to be honest.
Yeah.
Every time that I've lost a pet or a loved one, I kind of felt the same way. You know, you feel just kind of like everything sucks for a while.
Yeah.
And you don't think about anything and you try to just keep going. And once in a while memories pop up and it makes you feel like worse. And you just feel your grief over time more so. Besides like the first, 3, 4, 5 days, a week of just funk,
Yeah.
So I really related to the way that he does this and how it's written.
Okay, yeah.
Different people's emotions.
Yeah. And I'm definitely a very emotional, like name my emotional person. So maybe that's part of it. I don't know. I guess what I noticed more so was like,
it's just the lack of everything, right?
Yeah. And I feel
that's why I brought up New Moon.
Yes. Yeah. But I feel like, I don't know how to describe I think what I'm trying to convey, but it felt like in the first trilogy when Fitz goes through losing his wit partners, yes, he is still sort of moving on with his life because you have to when you lose people. But I feel like there's more, I guess, dwelling on like what he's lost even, whereas this feels more like I'm not fully feeling that grief to me. But it could be how I'm reading it and how I deal with grief versus how Fitz is doing it. So maybe it's nothing, but
when he gets his emotions at the end of this trilogy, we'll have to see if there's a Night Eyes reference in there. Because I know he talks about, I can feel the fresh pain again of different things, right? Like of losing Molly, I think is one of them. But we'll have to see if Night Eyes is in there.
Yeah, I don't know. But anyway, that was just something I thought maybe other people could relate to. But if not, totally fine.
3 days before the new moon, we came to Newford. As it was named, so it was, a fording and ferry that had not existed on my last journey through the area. It had a large dockyard and a good fleet of flat-bottomed river barges were tied there. The little town around it was new, raw as a scab with its rough timbered houses and warehouses. We did not linger but went straight to the ferry dock and waited in the rain until the evening ferry was ready to cross. Fitz can't even be scared on this ferry ride over, basically.
Even though it's horrible weather, horrible river conditions, like it is not a safe and easy ride. He says, but I could not find sufficient love of life to be scared of death. And if anything, he's just more annoyed by the delay that the ferryman is giving him.
Mm-hmm.
And that makes him pause because what is he talking about, delay? I wondered sarcastically to myself, delay? And what did I rush towards? Home and hearth? Wife and children? I had Hap still, I reminded myself, but on the heels of that thought, I knew I did not. Hap was a young man, striking out on his own. For me to cling to him now, and make him the focus of my life, would have been an act of a leech. So who was I, when I stood alone, stripped of all others? It was a difficult question.
So yeah, now Fitz is kind of feeling his mooring kind of coming loose, and he's spinning adrift, and doesn't really know where to go from here without Night Eyes even, right? Because if he has Night Eyes, he can go back to his cottage and live, because that he loves that companionship. But without somebody there, even though his dream is to kind of, be off on his own, he always imagined it with Night Eyes.
Yeah. And I think that's the most interesting thing about this whole grief process to me is that Fitz is sort of realizing that how alone he has become, but also how much he actually doesn't want to be alone.
Yeah.
Like there is obviously some part of him that wants to come back and be part of his life at Buckkeep. And yet he just can't seem to bring himself to make that connection or let other people in, maybe is a better way to say it.
The ferry gets across the river and Fitz is like, okay, well, we did it. Buckkeep is a day's ride away and we still have, a couple days left. So congratulations us, I guess.
Yeah.
But he doesn't feel any sense of relief or elation. He just kind of wants it done, wants this over with. Lord Golden declared firmly that we would go no farther that night, and the inn there was older than the town on the other side of the river. Rain masked the other buildings of the hamlet, but I thought I glimpsed a small livery stable and a scatter of homes beyond it. The inn's signboard was an oar painted on an old tiller, and the lumber of its walls showed weathered gray where its whitewashing had faded. The savage night had crowded the inn near full. Lord Golden and his party were too bedraggled to invoke the assumptions of nobility. Fortunately, he had sufficient coin to buy both the respect and awe of the innkeeper. Merchant Kestrel, as he identified himself, obtained 2 rooms for us, although one was a small one up under the rafters. This, his sister gamely declared, would suit her admirably, and the merchant and his 2 servants would have the other. If the prince had any qualms about traveling in disguise, he did not show them. Hooded and cloaked, he stood dripping on the porch with me until a serving boy came out to tell us that our master's room was ready. So Lord Golden uses Kestrel as his cover name.
Yes. Which is kind of a sweet little homage to
to Kettle.
Old woman Kettle.
But as Fitz is passing the entry to the inn, he hears a woman's clear voice lifted in song from the common room. Of course, I thought to myself, of course. Who else could better keep watch at an inn than a minstrel? Starling sang that ancient lay of the 2 lovers who defied their families and ran off to leap to their deaths for love of one another. I did not even glance into the room, though I saw Laurel had paused to listen by the door. And the prince just follows listlessly with Fitz. So, yeah, Starling is waiting in this inn. Starling is the messenger, is the kind of relay in between them and Chade.
Yes. It's interesting to me that she is a tool for Chade. She's like one of his network.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess it makes sense, right? She knows of his existence, so she's got to be useful.
Keeping close to power, yeah.
Yeah. But, I don't know. I was not expecting her, even though I've read this before. I totally forgot
she's singing Romeo and Juliet.
Yes, obviously. The classic.
Yeah, ancient lay of 2 lovers.
Yes. I do wonder if Laurel stops because she knows...
She would have heard Starling before.
Right. She's heard Starling. But does she recognize this as sort of something that's sent by the crown? Or is she just like, whoa, Starling's here,
I think that one. Starling morning song.
Yes. But I do, I don't know. The rest of this chapter really puts into perspective how much Fitz actually knows and how smart he is, I guess. I'm very hard on Fitz a lot of the time, but to be fair to him, he does put things together pretty easily, and it seems like nobody else is quite up to his level, except maybe
definitely
Lord Golden.
Chade, obviously.
Well,
Lord
Chade,
Golden, but in a different way.
Yeah.
Lord Golden for sure. But Fitz, even as depressed as he is, he just hears Starling singing like, oh yeah, of course, she's the one here for the message.
Yeah, this isn't a coincidence. Because why would she be here otherwise? This is not
exactly
her normal.
I did like the of course in there. Like, this is just what I need.
Right. Well, they didn't end on great terms.
Yep.
The last time he saw her, she was hurling insults at him and his boy. So
yeah, and his wolf.
And his wolf. But Fitz ignores it and goes up to the room with the prince.
Lord Golden was already in the room there, and there's a window at the one end of the room, and the prince walks to it and just stares out into the night. So Fitz is kind of fulfilling his duty as a servant, helping Lord Golden out of his clothes a little bit there. And eventually the stream of servants move in and out of the room, the servants for the inn, and they bring buckets of hot water and meat pies, stewed fruit, bread, and ale. And they all moved with such precision that they reminded me of a troop of jugglers as they swept in a wave and then likewise receded from the room. When they vanished out of the door once more, I shut it firmly behind them. The hot water in the tub filled the room with the aroma of bathing herbs, and I suddenly longed to lean back in it and seek oblivion. Lord Golden's words recalls him to himself, and Lord Golden, says, "Hey, Prince Dutiful, your bath is ready."
Do you require assistance? Is what he asks.
Yes. And the prince is like, "No assistance, thank you." Obviously, he's a boy used to taking care of his own needs. He was raised by Kettrican after all.
Yes.
He's not going to have a lot of servants doting on him.
But he also says, "Do not wait for me. I do not stand on formalities. I see no sense in you going hungry while I am bathing." "And that you are your father's son," Lord Golden observed approvingly. The prince inclined his head gravely to the compliment, but made no other response.
I thought that was a really interesting comment by Lord Golden, because Lord Golden at this point has not indicated to Dutiful that he has known Verity at all.
Yes.
So it's interesting that he kind of blows his cover a little bit by making that comment.
I think it's a specific choice.
Probably.
I don't think it was like a slip up. I think it's a purposeful one. And I think that Lord Golden, or Beloved, sort of, I don't know, wants to compliment the prince in a way. I think he knew that this is maybe something he would want to hear and decided to say it despite knowing that it blows his cover in a way.
We get a lot of subtext in this chapter, especially later on, of, Laurel and Lord Golden both being like, "Oh my gosh, you guys are talking now. This is insane. Like, you guys are human, are acting human again."
Yeah.
They don't outright make a comment. So I'm wondering if Lord Golden's trying to play into that. Oh, Dutiful is speaking with some manners. Let's hit him where he is interested.
Yeah.
And obviously he's very interested in his father. So I'm wondering if it was that kind of thing too. Of just let's encourage him to, keep interacting with us.
Yeah. No, that could be for sure. I don't know. But I mean, later the cover is blown. So I don't know. I wonder if he wants him to get it. And who knows? I do think that Beloved liked Verity enough. I don't think he was thrilled about him being king or anything, but I don't think he hated him. But yeah, so that is a really interesting slip up to have. But the prince does not say anything about it.
No.
It sort of just goes on. And it is a sort of very Verity thing to do. I thought that was cute.
Lord Golden is waiting until Prince Dutiful gets behind the screens, and then he starts writing a note. And Fitz goes and grabs a meat pie and starts eating a little bit. And Lord Golden then speaks as the quill scratched out a final line. "Well, at least we're out of the weather for a time. I think we shall have a good sleep here and go on tomorrow, but not too early in the morning. Does that suit you, Tom?" "As you wish, Lord Golden," I replied as he blew on the missive, then rolled it. He tied it with a thread drawn from his once grand cloak. He handed it to me, one eyebrow raised. I did not mistake his meaning. "I'd rather not," I said very quietly. He left the writing table and went to where the food was spread. He began to serve himself, deliberately clattering dishes and pots as he did so. His voice was soft as he muttered, "And I would rather you did not have to go. But I cannot. Unkempt as I am, there are still folk here that might recognize Lord Golden and mark his interest in the minstrel. I've earned enough scandal to my name on this journey. Have you forgotten my actions at Galekeep? I've all of that to explain away when I return to Buckkeep. Nor can Dutiful go, and as far as I know, Laurel is ignorant of the connection. Starling might recognize her, but would look askance at a note delivered by her. So you it must be, I fear." I feared the same, and feared more the traitorous part of me that actually wished to go down the stairs and catch the minstrel's eye. There is a part of any man that will do anything to stave off loneliness. It is not necessarily the most cowardly part of a man's soul, but I've seen any number of men do shameful things to indulge it. Worse, I wondered if the fool were not deliberately sending me down to her. Once before, when loneliness had threatened to devour my heart, he had told her where to find me. It had been a misguided comfort I took in her arms. I vowed I would not do so again.
So, first thought that pops to mind, did the fool really send Starling to Fitz to make him less lonely in the past? Like, was that really the intention, do you think?
I kind of feel like yes.
Okay.
That's kind of what I got from the chapters in Assassin's Quest. So,
Okay.
you don't think so, though?
I don't know. I think Beloved did send Starling to Fitz, but I don't think it was thinking that it would turn into what it did. I think he was hoping Starling would blab and force him to come back into society, or at least have friends, keep up with his friends. And that's not really how it played out. I don't know.
He's talking about in Assassin's Quest when they're like camping or something like that. And the fool told Starling where Fitz was, like down by the river or something, right? And she goes down there, and that's where they have sex for the first time, second time. I don't remember if they did in Blue Lake or not when they first met. But yeah, I think it was that time that he's talking about, not afterwards, because Chade obviously sends her afterwards, right?
Right. Ooh. I don't know.
Yeah.
Weird.
It's one of those scenes that's like not super consequential to the Assassin's Quest, but like has impact on their relationship.
It's clearly.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, I guess stick to what you know. It worked one time.
Right. So Fitz takes the message and he goes downstairs. The feathers from the treasure beach were still in his sleeve as he slips the missive up there. That secret, he says, at least, still remained my own, and would until I had time to share it with him privately. And aloud, he says, I see you're restless despite our long day. Go along, Tom. The prince and I can fend for ourselves for an evening. So basically giving him permission to the prince that says, yeah, Tom Badgerlock, you can go downstairs. And Fitz is like, he's not going to believe that because I'm in the same state he is.
Yeah, he knows how miserable I am. Although, I don't know why Fitz thinks that would be unbelievable, a man to seek drink after a sad thing has happened to him.
Fair.
Not like out of the realm of possibility, but he does say, I wondered whom he thought to deceive. And then perhaps it was a play we all acted for each other, because he responds the way that he's supposed to respond. And it is sort of funny because in a way it is a little bit of a play, and later Dutiful is going to comment on it. But in my mind, I'm feeling very Chade-esque in that I'm like, well, you never know who's listening. You might as well, like, you don't know that you're alone in this inn and that nobody's listening into the room. So, I don't know. But Fitz does go down. And...
But I want to remark first on the feathers that he keeps strapped there. And he says, like, I want to talk about this, it's a secret until I choose to divulge it, which is good. He doesn't want to speak about them in front of the prince at all. Later on in this chapter, he tries to bring it up, but then the prince comes in. And he's like, oh, can't talk about it anymore.
Yes.
So I feel like he's just like, I need the fool. I need just me and the fool. This is obviously something cool and weird connected to us.
Yeah. I do think it's less about the feathers and more about wanting that connection with his friend.
Yeah, that's fair.
And I think...
it's not a priority on his mind right now, while all the readers are screaming like, just give it to him.
Yes. But I don't know. I think Fitz does this thing where he acts like he doesn't need anybody and he doesn't care. But whenever Beloved is around and isn't Beloved, or I guess the fool, Fitz feels really insecure about their relationship
Yeah.
and if it's real or not. And I feel like that's like just a reoccurring problem that happens where, in a way, Fitz can't quite comprehend the friendship unless it's being directly told to him that it exists.
Incredibly low self-esteem. Like, and
Yeah.
we've seen that too. Like, he feels he's incapable of being loved, right?
Yes. And so it's interesting that even with his closest friend and companion, especially without Night Eyes in the picture, he still can't fully trust that connection, and also is having sort of that want to see Fool beneath Lord Golden.
Right.
Like, yeah, but he does go. And as he leaves, he runs into Laurel outside on the stairs to go down to the common room. And neither of them say anything. Fitz kind of just nods at her and keeps going. And not to be rude. He knows it is sort of rude, but he just wants to get this over with what he has to do.
He says, I tried to think of some words, but I couldn't. So I just kind of walked past her. She's given him a weird look, and he hears like an inhalation of breath behind him, but he just keeps going.
And I wonder if she wants to apologize for what happened or talk about what happened, because ultimately, from her perspective, once again, she doesn't know him and she doesn't know him well. And
Right.
the last they saw each other, really, she was fleeing with her cousin, and they have not talked about it.
Right.
He's just been silent the whole time, not really joining in on any conversation that we get to know about.
And also, she has grown up with Old Blood. She knows probably kind of, at least tangentially, what it's like to lose a partner.
Right.
Or has been around people who have lost bond partners before. So is probably trying to be like
Sorry
somewhat
for your loss,
sympathetic or
but also,
comforting. Exactly. It's just an awkward situation.
Yeah. But he goes down and he mentions that it's really crowded in the inn, and it's probably partially due to the fact that Starling has an amazing reputation now, but it also is partially due to the fact that it's raining really hard outside
Yeah.
and there's nowhere else to go.
He walks to the hearth and crowds himself into a corner just behind Starling's elbow. I knew it was no coincidence she was here. She had been watching for us to return, and likely she had access to a bird to pass word of us on to Buckkeep. So I was not surprised when she feigned not to notice me and kept playing and singing. After 3 more songs, she said, I need to rest. And when she sat down beside me to drink, I passed her Lord Golden's note under the table. Then I tossed off the last mouthful of beer in my mug and went out to the back house. And as he's coming back, she's waiting outside underneath the eaves of the inn. The message has been sent, she greeted me. I'll tell my master. I started to walk past her, but she caught my sleeve. Tell me, she said quietly. Ancient caution guarded my tongue. I did not know how much information Chade had given her. We completed our errand. So I guessed, she replied tartly, then she sighed. And I know better than to ask you what Lord Golden's errand was. But tell me of you. You look terrible. Your hair chopped short, your clothes in rags. What happened?
And before he answers, I just want to point out Starling really doesn't get told anything. She is super out of the loop, and I don't think she even understands that the prince is with them.
No, she does not.
So I think it's really interesting because Starling's so prideful about how much she understands, which again will be funny in a little bit. But I think it's especially interesting that for all of her minstrel knowing ways and being so observant, she doesn't know, and she wants to know. And obviously I'm nosy too. I'd want to know, but it's just interesting to me how many things she misses.
Yeah.
And I think it does show that, once again, it really captures how good, I guess, Fitz is at his job, but also how much other people just don't pay attention.
Yeah, true. So she asks what happens, And he says, of all I had been through, only one event was mine to share or not as I pleased. I told her, Night Eyes is dead. She sighs deeply and put her arms around me. Oh, Fitz. She leaned her head against my scratched chest. I could see the pale part in her dark hair, and I smelled her scent and the wine she had drunk. Her hands moved softly on my back, soothingly. Alone again. It isn't fair. Truly, it isn't. You've the saddest song of any man I've ever known. She said nothing more for a long time. I lifted my arms and put them around her. Just as it once had, it seemed inevitable. She spoke against my chest. I've a room to myself. It's at the river end of the inn. Come to me. Let me take your hurt away. I thank you. That won't mend it, I wanted to tell her. If she had ever known me at all, she would know that now. But words would not make her understand it if she could not sense it on her own. I suddenly appreciated the fool's silence and distance. He had known. No other closeness could make up for the lack of my wolf. The rain went on falling. She loosened her hold on me and looked up into my face. You aren't going to come to me tonight, are you? She sounded incredulous.
Back to Starling.
Strange, I had been wavering in my resolve, but the very way she phrased the question helped me to answer it correctly. I shook my head slowly. I appreciate the invitation, but it wouldn't help. Are you sure of that? She tried to make her voice light and failed. I'm sure. I don't love you, Starling. Not that way. It seems to me that you told me that once before, a long time ago. But for years, it did help. It did work. Her eyes searched my face. She smiled confidently. It hadn't. It had only seemed to. I could have told her that, but it would have been an unnecessary honesty. So I only said, Lord Golden expects me. I have to go up to him. So Fitz is trying to be a little bit nice still.
Yeah, he doesn't want to hurt her feelings.
Yeah.
And I think he knows Starling is very prideful. And the fact that he's turning her down is not going over well. Not that he probably would have thought it ever would.
And a lot of her self-worth seems to be tied up in this situation as well.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of undercurrent happening to Starling's feelings, I think. But I think even just how she starts the conversation of yours is the saddest song.
Yeah.
I think it really goes back to what Fool said all those years ago of she doesn't see you as a person. Like,
Yeah.
she's interested in Fitz chivalry Farseer, the hero, the
villain,
person,
the bastard, the whatever.
Yeah, whatever he is, but that character. And what that means to be close to him, not necessarily how he's actually feeling. And I mean, I don't want to be too harsh because I feel like she is ultimately offering to sleep with him out of the kindness of her heart. Like,
yeah, right.
Look, I know, but I do think it's coming from a place like that's just what she knows to offer.
Yeah, exactly, that is.
And that's how their relationship has always been. Like, I don't think that's a callous thing on purpose. But I think Fitz has the right of it of like it doesn't help. And if she knew me at all, like they've known each other a decade or more, and she still doesn't understand that that's not all there is to friendship.
And that's why he remarks on the Fool too. It's just like, well, the Fool did know. Even though I was kind of mad at him for staying away, that is what I needed. Like, I couldn't just try to make up for my wolf with friendship or with an intimate relationship with Starling for a night or something, you know? Like, that's not how I get over this. That's not how I can process this.
But I also do sort of like the added detail of like Fitz is struggling with this decision. Like, he wants to just do the easy thing and find comfort in Starling's arms, but it's Starling's attitude that puts him off. And like the knowledge of like, she really does not care about me. This isn't about me anymore. This is turning into a thing about her. And I think ultimately the more it goes on, the more clear that becomes.
Yeah, because he says, Lord Golden expects me. I have to go to him. What a grievous end to a sad tale. And I am the only one who knows the whole of it. And still I am not allowed to sing it. What a tragic lay it would make. You are the son of a king who sacrificed all for his father's family, only to finish as the ill-used servant of an arrogant foreign noble. He doesn't even dress you well. The ignominy of it must cut you like a blade. She looked deep into my eyes, seeking what? Resentment? Outrage? It doesn't really bother me, I replied in some confusion. Then, as if someone had drawn a curtain open and spilled out light, I understood. She did not know that Lord Golden was the fool. She truly saw me as but his servant, passing a message to her on his behalf. For all her minstrel cleverness, she looked at him and saw the wealthy Gemalian lord. I fought the smile away from my face. I am content with my position with him and grateful to Chade for arranging it. I am satisfied to be Tom Badgerlock. And then she looks incredulous, and then that fades to disappointment because that's what she wants. Like, that's the opposite of what she wants for him to do, right? She wants him to be out in the open. She wants her to be able to sing Fitz chivalry's praises.
Yeah, I don't think it's so much about him at all. And
well, no, but it is in the way that you were talking about it before. That's what I mean.
Right.
She wants him to be ambitious and take control of his life so she has more of this story that she knows.
Right, because then it amplifies her.
Exactly.
Yeah, I agree. But I do think sort of this is supposed to hurt him. This is supposed to get him to realize what he's doing. And instead does show her ignorance in a lot of different ways, but especially just ignorant to actually anything going on, which does show to Fitz and the reader that she's not as smart as she thinks she is, but also she isn't part of the inner circle anymore. Like she was for the journey because she was there, but she is not anymore in any capacity. Like she helps Chade with some things, but clearly it's very surface level. And I think as she continues on with Fitz being confused why she cares, it hurts her feelings. And I think the reason she gets so frustrated, it goes back to what we were talking about of him not going for glory affects her.
Right.
Like she could be more popular. And I think ultimately, as we've said, she really cares about the legacy she will live and leave on after she lives.
Yeah.
And Fitz in his own way is taking away from her a little bit more of that legacy.
Yeah.
And that's not fair to blame on Fitz, but in her mind, I think that's what's going on. Mm-hmm. And so whenever he says it doesn't bother him, she looks incredulous for a moment. The look faded into disappointment in me. Then she gave a small shake of her head. I should have known you would be. It's what you always wanted, isn't it? Your own little life. To have no responsibility for your line or for what happens at court. To be one of the humble folk, counting for nothing in the long run. All my earlier efforts to square her feelings seemed vapid now. I have to go, I repeated. Hurry along to your master. She released me. Her voice was a trained talent, and her scorn danced in it with a scorpion's sting. By a vast effort of will, I said nothing in reply, which probably stings more. But I think the line specifically that Fitz wants his own life to have no responsibility for your line or for what happens at court, I think that for your line is her own insecurities.
Yeah.
That because she thinks she'll never have a line of succession.
Correct.
So like why he has everything he could want and he's throwing it away. Everything she wants and he's throwing it away. And I do really think I have sympathy for Starling, even though she makes me very frustrated and I don't think she's a very good person. But I think it's interesting to have such a morally gray character that is considered a good guy. You know what I mean? Like she's one of the team. She does good things and she is never seen as a villain to Fitz. So it's interesting to have someone who is so mean and mean-spirited on Fitz's side.
I think we'll end this part of the chapter there. We've covered quite a bit of ground and we have quite a bit to go. So thank you so much for tuning in so far. If you have thoughts, please email us at isfitzhappy@gmail.com, or you can message us on any of our socials. Is Fitz Happy at Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, Blue Sky, Threads, Reddit. Believe I covered them all. So thank you very much. All. Yeah. Hope to hear from you.
See you next week. Okay, so now we get to do our favorite part, which is talk about the stuff that you've brought to our attention. And this week, we're going to start with one I don't know if we've ever started with, and that's Blue Sky.
Yeah. So at Vale and Hollow on Blue Sky kind of responded to our episode 276 post and just had some thoughts about how we were talking about Ketrican raising Dutiful as a sacrifice in that certain way just isn't
great.
Good. Yeah, at all. And they say, I agree with you on the point that raising a child as sacrifice might not be the best for the child, but Dutiful is not just a child. And goes on to say that he's going to be king. It's more than just a child. You can't afford to just be a regular person. Now, they agree that it's not the best way to do things, and it's a flawed system. However, if you're doing it this way, this child has to be more than just
a kid.
Like, you have to put more on them.
Yeah, which is fair, for sure, to
bring up as a point.
Yeah, to bring up.
It's unfair as a system for the kid, but it is fair to bring up.
Yes, yeah. But I don't know. I feel like it's one of those things that I think has been said in our conversation about, like, who's the best parent in the series.
Right.
And that, like, nobody's the best parent because there's no such thing as a perfect parent. Like, there's always going to be things you could have done better. And ultimately, Dutiful does turn out to be a pretty good kid. So, I don't know. That feels pretty clear that, like, she's doing something right.
I still don't love the philosophy, but, like, I get the culture behind it and it works for that culture. I just don't like it that much.
Yeah. And I mean,
same
ultimately,
with monarchy. But.
Yeah, true. Ultimately, Verity is a good leader and he does turn into, I think. Dutiful, yeah. Sorry, I said Verity, didn't I? Dutiful is ultimately a really good leader. And I think made more so because he is allowed to go out and be around people, which is a sacrifice thing, not a Farseer thing.
This is a kind of a tangent here, but I really don't get a grasp of how good Dutiful is as a king because we don't spend any time with him in the last trilogy. It's fair. Focused on Fitz during, like, oh, good times are good. I don't need to do anything at the capital.
Yeah.
And then, oh, times are really bad. I'm chasing across the world, and there's no focus on where they are as a kingdom.
That's fair.
There's no internal duchies politics in it.
Yeah. I would argue that it has to be somewhat good because there's not a ton of evil happening in the kingdom.
That's definitely fair.
It's peacetime.
Yeah. I wanted to make the mention that we don't get a full grasp of how actually good he is or if he's just a stable king.
But we do get interactions now of who Verity's character is, and I think
Dutiful's character is.
Oh my gosh, why do I keep doing that? Sorry, what Dutiful's character is, and I think
because he's just Verity's son.
Yeah, I don't know. I think the glimpses we get through Fitz, even if Fitz is biased because it's his nephew and the king that he'll serve, I think it's pretty clear that he is good at speaking to others. I mean, think about when we were in the cave with the piebalds. He was really good at speaking to the group and looking at people. And I don't know. I think there's glimpses of how good of a king he will be in this trilogy enough to where I can confidently say he turns out fine, especially because there's not really a war or anything later.
Yeah. No, he definitely turns out fine, and he's probably a good king. I just don't really know if he'll ever be. I was kind of lamenting the fact that we don't know.
Yeah, that's fair.
You know, no time is spent on that in the last trilogy.
So thank you, Valen Hollow, for bringing up that he is a king and it's different.
Yes, yes. We also had an email from Joseph, who is writing to us about our favorite wolf.
Yes.
Oh, man. Before we get into kind of that part of it, Joseph has a more interesting and less sad portion of his email talking about how Night Eyes pops up after his death.
Yes.
On this recent reread, I was paying close attention to every time Night Eyes pops up after his death. The question I had for myself was, is it really like Black Rolf said, or is it something more? Meaning that, is it like echoes in your head?
Yes.
I won't share my conclusion now because I don't want to influence your analysis, but it is interesting to read the books with that in mind. I'm looking forward to your analysis of those moments. So please remember to write us back when we discuss it in the future
Yes.
and things like that, Joseph. But it is interesting that this thought has occurred to other people as well.
Yeah.
We know that this topic is interesting to the fandom because Night Eyes appearing in Bee's head is such a weird thing.
Yes.
So it's definitely been talked about. I just don't know. I didn't know how talked about the part about Fitz alone would be. Like, is it, Black Rolf saying like, no, it's normal, or is this a connection, something more?
Yeah. So, I can't wait to get our glimpses of Night Eyes, mostly because I love Night Eyes and will miss him immensely, but also because I'm curious to know if we'll find out more about sort of this connection.
Yeah.
And what it means.
Especially in preparation for the final trilogy.
Ooh, that one's going to be rough.
Joseph goes on talking about the chapter, basically saying, I normally don't cry at different medias, but this gets me so hard. And Joseph says, what really gets me is at the end, Night Eyes gives Fitz permission to let go of his guilt over Night Eyes not being able to join a pack while also being with Fitz. Night Eyes lets Fitz know that he didn't have any regrets, and that is a beautiful final gift.
Yeah.
It really is just letting your partner know, like, hey, I don't regret any time I spent with you or any of the decisions I made. This was our life.
Yeah. And I think that's something that Night Eyes has previously tried to get across
Right.
to Fitz in some ways.
He is a wolf. It's like live in the moment. Like, we made our decisions. Let's just keep going on. This is exactly what I'm choosing in the moment every time, and I can't regret that.
Yeah.
But he also is influenced by the human side of Fitz.
Yeah, and I think you do see that human influence in that at the beginning of this book, there was sort of that moment that's mentioned where it seems like for a time when Night Eyes and Fitz were living together, Night Eyes was restless about not having pack.
Right.
And so this clearly is something that has come up over the years for them, and probably just another way for Fitz to self-hate of I've ruined Night Eyes' life.
Right.
And just I ruin everyone's life, I'm sure. So I think, it is really nice that they get that moment of, hey, we had a really good thing, and I'm glad that we had our own thing.
Yeah, definitely.
It was worth it. So
thank you, Joseph. We also had some messages on Instagram. One from Martin,
who did mention that they also were super sad about the episode.
Yes. Saying that this was the first new one that they listened to because they were listening to the old episodes and wanted to do a hybrid thing and jump to the new ones. And
what a one to start on.
What a great one. Yeah.
So it made them think of the idea of where you restart a song that's sad because it didn't hit right emotionally. That's what reading this chapter is that you're really when you reread, you're really putting yourself through it again.
Mm-hmm.
But But they did have some thoughts about what we had discussed.
And a lot of questions, too, about the future. It's kind of the same with the other thoughts that people have been sending in. Like, what is actually going on with Night Eyes' memories / spirit staying around?
Yeah. Please do watch out for future mentions explaining the Night Eyes soul with Fitz, because for me as a reader, it was super confusing how in the last trilogy that ghost of Night Eyes went with B. It seems pretty inconsistent for me that in Fitz's mind he was barely a thing, then when he's with B, he was nearly a separate being, though he didn't talk to her too often. And then in the end, when they were sculpting the stone wolf, it sounded as if original Night Eyes went into the stone with Fitz and the Fool.
Yeah, so we'll have to really be on the lookout for these things, because it does play such a pivotal role in the third trilogy, or the last trilogy as well. So, yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. I'm excited to see it. I am of the thought that Night Eyes stayed behind in a sense, but I am waiting for the text to prove me right.
Okay.
Basically, because how else could you explain the fact that he can go over to B's consciousness, which is what I think about all the time. But
I can explain that part, but not how he kind of like goes back to the wolf, basically. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But anyways, thank you very much for that message.
Yes, thank you. We also got a message from Zoe on Instagram that was really interesting because because they let us know that they found out there was a god called El and wanted to know if it inspired Rob and Hobb.
Yeah, basically El is kind of an old word for God, basically, in some of the very ancient languages. So it was an interesting read, kind of linked us to a Britannica.com topic for El, and then also a TikTok. So.
Yeah, a really interesting one.
Yeah.
So it was a really interesting just thought process of like,
where do the inspirations come for naming and things like that?
And if this was like sort of Rob and Hobb being inspired from other things, or if this was
wink, wink, nudge, nudge, or if this was on accident.
Which could be either. We don't know.
Yeah.
But I like it a lot. So thank you. Thank you for letting us know there is technically a god called El.
Yeah. And I think the last thing that we had, correct me if I'm wrong, is on Threads.
Yes. Yeah. We got a reply. Technically, this is an old thing that I miss because I'm horrible at checking Threads because it is our least interacted with. Because it's not, I don't use it very often for us. That's on me. But somebody did reply to a question I asked for episode 269. And that question was, why do you think it took Fitz so long to notice the skill stone at the inn? So this is when they're at the
Piebald Prince, in Hallersby.
Yes, and I asked, why is it taking so long to understand that what's happening to him is from the skill stone? And Fracture and the Fool responded, I think it's a mixture of not expecting skill stone in anywhere except where he initially encountered it in the past in the mountains, as well as him already being tired and applying Chade's rule of simple answers being the correct one.
That's
Plus,
fair.
he's a little oblivious anyway.
Those are all really good explanations too, especially like kind of Chade's training. Like, you're expected to be tired. You're just tired. You know?
You don't need to look into it.
Don't look for,
Although
it's Occam's razor kind of thing.
I would argue Chade's training would be a little bit more suspicious of suddenly being tired, if only because you're always worried about being poisoned as an assassin.
True.
But I'll give it to you this time. So I'm sorry we missed this from 10 weeks ago. I don't think it was quite that long ago, but it could have been.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for bringing that up. And thank you to everyone who responds.
And a special thank you to Anna and Neva, as always, for supporting us on Ko-fi.
Yeah. And thank you to people who respond. I promise, even if we don't see it right away, we will eventually see it. And we might bring it up on the podcast if you don't tell us not to. So, so thank you guys. We look forward, as always, to hearing what you guys have to say for next week.